As we always kick off the show, I want everybody to take a moment and think about what Goldilocks reminds you of. To me, Goldilocks is all about balance because she didn't want anything too hot. She didn't want anything too cold, right? She didn't want anything too hard. She didn't want anything too soft. And to me, that epitomizes the balance we need to drive the kind of change and influence the change we want to see. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Think about what Goldilocks reminds you. To me, Goldilocks is about not being too hot or too cold in a situation, not being too hard or not being too soft. It's all about finding that centeredness and coming at every situation and every scenario from the point of that centeredness. And why is that centeredness important? Research shows that if I am in a balanced centeredness position, I have influence in both directions, up and down, right? That's why successful companies lead from the middle. And I will have 7 degrees of influence because anybody at any given time can only influence 3 levels, up or down. So when I'm in the middle, I can influence 3 levels up, 3 levels down, and my own level. How many of us don't want to influence 7 levels in our lives to bring about the change we want to see, right? We're all here because we want to drive the change that we believe we deserve so that socially and economically, we live in a global society that we believe we deserve, right? So if that's where we are coming from, why not find that centeredness and come in interaction with everybody from that place? Because if I'm on either extreme, I'm only going to have influence 3 layers in one direction, right? The reason I picked the name for the show is to remind people that we need to come from that centeredness, if not for the greater good, just for my personal self-interest and selfish reasons, right? So whichever way we slice it, there is value in coming from that place of centeredness. Keeping that in mind, today we are going to talk about why we need to understand root cause. You remember being a 3-year-old or being around a 3-year-old? What is the one thing that stands out? Anything they see, anything they hear, they say, but why? But why? But why, right? And there comes a time where you're like, shut up already. But what if we approach life just like that 3-year-old asking why? And maybe we can get to a place where we understand why things are happening the way they are. So in order to get us started, let me actually take the liberty and share something with you. I want to introduce the topic in a very lighthearted way. I'm a believer that learning and growing should be fun. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing, okay? Whatever is worth doing, we need to do right. And whatever is worth doing has to be fun, right? Anybody here likes to do things that are not engaging and fun? No, right?
No.
We'll turn off and go. Okay, so let's keep this fun. And we're going to start asking the question why. So I'm going to introduce the topic from a very easy to understand approach of what is root cause. So think of the poem or nursery rhyme that you remember from your childhood, or maybe you're going to learn something new. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. Hang with me here. And for want of the shoe, the horse was lost. So remember, the shoe has a nail that goes on the bottom of the horse's foot, right? So because of the nail, the shoe was lost, and because of the shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of the message, the battle was lost. And for want of the battle, the kingdom was lost. So let's put it all together. The kingdom was lost is the problem, right? But why was the kingdom lost? Because we lost the battle. Is that the problem we need to solve then? No, if we want to know how do we win the battle the next time, we need to make sure we understand what made us lose the battle, right? So then when we ask, why was the battle lost? we understand because the messages didn't come on time. Kind of like if I didn't get the message out to everybody on time about this show, not many people are going to join, right? So timing is everything. Did it arrive on time? Why was the message lost? Because the writer was lost. Why was the writer lost? Because the horse was lost. The horse was lost because the nail was lost. Is the nail really the root cause, or is that something larger? Why was the nail lost? Was the nail forgotten to be put on the horseshoe? That means it's a person problem, right? Somebody forgot to put it, and somebody forgot to check if the nail was there. As a business process person, I'm saying it is either a person issue or a process issue, right? But if it was neither, what if it was the nail was broken, or it was manufactured flawed, or nail never arrived because there was a shortage of raw material, or something happened for the supply chain, kind of like COVID today, things don't arrive on time? What if we truly didn't get the nail because something prevented us from getting the nail, right? So the root cause is truly something much larger. And it could be a people issue, process issue, resource issue, supply chain issue. And understanding what caused it is what's going to help us make sure the next time around, if we are helping somebody, how do we not lose our kingdom, right? So keeping that in mind, let me share you a personal example. When I came into the United States, I came in as a graduate student. And just like all of you, I wanted to make sure that when I graduated, I had an opportunity to get a job, right? But what is the biggest problem when you come as a foreigner into a new country? You don't know anybody, right? And I didn't think through that process. So at the end of my first year, I went and talked to my professors, gave them my resume, got feedback from them, and started asking them, how can you help me get a job? And right away, they all said, with a name like that, nobody's even going to call you for an interview. Think about it. My religious name was Vadivambikai, okay? Vadivambikai. My work name, school name was Kasturi, Kasthui. And we don't have a last name, so I'd taken my father's first name as my last name, and that is spelled Gulasingam. So on paper, I was Vadivambikai Kasturi Gulasingam, and I am in Terre Haute, Indiana. Okay, it doesn't matter where in the United States. That is not a name that fits on a social security card. It was not a name anybody could pronounce, right? So first I was offended. What was my immediate reaction? Oh my God, my money was good enough when that came with the name. But now my name is not good enough for you to help me get a job. And you are my professor, right? So this is the internal conversation going on in my head. And so, yes, I stewed for a couple of days. Then I thought about, let me go deeper, because it doesn't matter what he or she thinks, it's still my problem. So how am I going to overcome it? And then I started talking to my American friends, and they're like, Cass, we all call you Cass. Why don't you just make it Cass Henry? Because Cass Henry is like a name that can go on a, you can run for office with that name. You can have a radio show with that name. This is literally what my friends told me. And that's a name everybody understands. Just change your resume to say Cass Henry, okay? And don't bother with people who don't want to help you. Let's figure out how to build relationships. So I spent almost a whole year applying for jobs and building relationships, because for everybody I talked to, even if they didn't have a job, I asked them to introduce me to somebody, right? So the way I was able to solve the problem is talk to people and get their input, then integrate it with my thinking, and then take multiple steps to address the issue. And I didn't stop there. Once I got a job, I moved to Chicago. I still continued to build relationships. I started presenting at conferences. I started writing to publish. I started helping other people, because the more lives we touch, the more impact we can have, right? All of you are here because in some way, shape, or form, you're trying to drive social change. You're trying to make this world a better place. So keeping that in mind, how can we think of problem solving, and how can we bring that to bear is the $1 million question. So to help me with this conversation, I have two great individuals with me. Both parties I know from other lives. Let me admit this person who's joining. There we go. Okay. So with me is both Ben and Derek. I have had the pleasure of working with Ben for a long time now. Ben is a management consultant with a very, very well-known Chicago company. I'm going to let him share the name if he so chooses to. But he's been my strategic partner and my friend. And he's somebody I always go to bounce off ideas, and we love exchanging, insights and conversations. So I am super excited to have Ben here with me. And he's somebody who gives back to the community tirelessly. And his bio is up here for anybody to read. And as you can see, he is focused on sustainability, conscious capitalism, and corporate social responsibility, things that are so near and dear to my heart. And also with me is Derek Drew. And his life's challenges have truly helped him understand problems and creating systems that empower people. So happy to have you both, Ben and Derek. And let's start with you, Ben. Think about some situations you've been in, both as a young person and an adult in the professional world, driving change and being a principal in a consulting firm, helping businesses and organizations find solutions to the problem. What stories come to your mind that you would like to share with our audience here?
Hey guys, so thank you, Kaz, for the warm introduction, and I'm really happy to be here. I am part of a consulting firm called Small Consulting here in Chicago, and my background has been very focused upon lean manufacturing, Lean Six Sigma, so really leaning out processes, understanding root cause, not only from a process standpoint, but also in manufacturing facilities, and things like that of the nature. So I can tell you a couple of stories where the story, Kaz, that you told around the 5 whys essentially beneficial in the business sense. So I mean, we're all very familiar with business, and the goal of business is, for me, a goal of business is to not only help make money, but also help people at the same time. There's nothing wrong with making money. One of my biggest beliefs is around conscious capitalism, where companies can do good and still make money, and it's all about the intention behind why you're in that business. A business can't function without revenue, because you need to have the money to actually have your operations run. So I get called into a lot of clients, and a lot of their problems are, hey, I don't understand why our revenue was down by like 20%, for example. The easiest solution, a lot of people think in terms of hypothesis, is like, well, consumers aren't selling as much. So let's just get the hammer home that they need to sell more, and then that call it a day, right? We'll check what our earnings are next quarter. If you peel the onion back a little bit more and more, what you find is that maybe those sales reps, they're not equipped with the right technology or the right documents to really help them come up with a more accurate forecast, or even provide the materials to the customers for them to sell. You pull that back a little bit more, you ask, why don't they have the right technologies in place? And you say, well, we don't have the right frameworks or the right people in place to help the technology solution. So when you peel things back a little bit more and more, whether it's through a business setting, a lot of the solution is actually the most obvious thing, but that's still only a symptom of the problem. You need to peel back the layers a little bit more and more to really get down to the root cause, which usually relies on helping people be equipped with the right tools and equipment and data to actually sell revenue, or to take in revenue for the company. So there's a lot of examples that I can pull from. That's the first obvious one that came to mind. Kaz, I'm really happy for this podcast. I'm glad that you're doing it, because I think one of the things that we're doing here is really educating people around problem solving, the power of networks, how to make any change, it first and foremost starts with you, but you need to bring and involve other people through your networks, through systems thinking to really make a change. I know there's some crazy things going on in the world right now, but in order to truly make change, it does start with the individuals, and we can't do it alone. We have to bring other people. So I'm really glad you're having this because it's allowing people to not to think only why are these things happening, whether it's in a professional setting or personal setting, but also the tools to help them figure out how they can make change.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ben. How about you, Derek? What would you like to share with the group to kick this off?
Yes, so I completed my master's degree at Illinois State University, and my thesis, the project I spent 2 years on, was on power and race in healthcare in the United States. And really, I would say the first year I spent digging, trying to find that root cause. You
Mhm.
think you find the answer, and then you have somebody that pushes you and pushes you to look deeper. So I was stuck for a while when I'm looking at examining these things and some of these problems, and they're even more relevant today. It seems like with all of the social activism, the riots and things of that nature, the pandemic. So I was stuck at race for a while, just because of my own experience growing up in America as a black man, and that was what I perceived really the problem to be. And then as you dig deeper, you realize that it's a lot of the greed and the exploitation
Mhm.
and a lot of these underlying causes. And one thing that I really came to understand as a large problem across the entire country and likely more parts of the world is just a misunderstanding of history. Is the lack of education on history history period, and not just history from the standpoint of the quote unquote winners, but from the people that quote unquote lost. So you got to look at the perspectives from people that were oppressed or I guess you want to say colonized, which I know you're familiar with coming from British Sri Lanka. So, um, and you see these kind of same issues come up across history, these same questions, the same tactics, and it really helps me to understand the present and have a better understanding of potentially where we are going as people in the future, because I have an understanding of that history of how these things kind of work. So when I'm looking at society today, I'm looking in that with that lens, with those eyes, and a lot of things that people perceive to be kind of coming from left field or just crazy. I see as, okay, well, this is why this happened. People are upset because of this, and I mean, if you look at, we had a pandemic in the early 1900s in the United States with I'm trying to think, was the Black Plague, not the Black Plague, but
Spanish flu.
the Spanish flu. Sorry, yes. And you see pictures of people from 1911 wearing masks, at games and things like that. So, things like this. This isn't the first time this is happening, and likely won't be the last. So, when you understand things like that, you can start to make sense of the world around you a lot easier,
Mhm.
and hopefully explain that to people who are seeking those answers. So my big thing is understanding history, because history kind of has the answers we're already looking for right in front of us. So that's my spiel, and I still do a lot of research myself, and like to create systems of empowerment to whether that be through education or through employment or things of that nature, to give people that opportunity to better their lives and have the things that they want and most importantly need.
Thank you so very much for that, Derek. And a couple of things that you said, I want to reiterate and reaffirm for everybody, including myself. History gives us context, right? And to me, history is very much like, when you look at light, it's bright, right? but it's that same light that has all the colors of the rainbow. And the part of learning physics and applying physics in real life is as the light diffracts, I can actually see the different colors. But if I train myself to see that light only through one lens and I see only one color, my entire world view is going to be tinted by those lenses, and I'm never going to see the trueness of everything that is happening around me. So it's very important for us to remember the entire presence of light and absence of light and everything else in between is there in front of us to see. Are we showing up in a way that we can see all of it? And am I using history to give me that context, and am I drawing from that history? COVID is a perfect example right now, right? We're all angry. We can't go get a haircut. We can't go to the bar. We can't go to college. We can't go and get a job. Companies are closing down. Companies are downsizing. So we are upset about all of these outcomes. But can we get 50% of Americans to actually wear a mask to stop the problem? Hell no. People don't want to do that, right? So it's like, if I saw a bumper sticker one day, if you live like there is no God, you better stop praying that you're not going to hell, right? It's ironic. You may believe there is no God, but you better get down on your knees, right? So if we live like all of this is somebody else's problem, what is our role here, right? So with the beautiful context Ben and Derek has presented to us, I'm actually going to open it up to the audience and our panel participants here and truly ask you guys, ladies and gentlemen, to actually engage in the conversation of what your thoughts are, what your questions are, because that is where the value is going to be. So take it away. Okay. Any thoughts, any questions, any ideas? Feel free. It's a safe place.
So when it comes to looking at the world from like a different perspective, when you only have like one, how can you facilitate looking at others' perspectives and learning from others' perspectives in a very like loving way without disrupting or triggering yourself? Or how to react when given that situation without being triggered or wanting to react in a negative way?
That is such a beautiful question, right? So I am going to have my panelists here, my guests here also jump in. But I hear that, and I hear two things from you. One, you want to be mindful in the way you engage, right? You don't want to trigger yourself and you don't want to trigger anybody else. But you also want to understand how you kind of get a different perspective. So here we have all of us from different parts of the world, right? I am from Sri Lanka. English is not my native tongue. We have Ben, who has a East Asian ancestry. We have Derek here, who has his African-American history and lived experience. What are both your thoughts in terms of answering Adriana's question here and helping her think through this?
I'll dive in first, man, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Just because Dr. Cass touched on mindfulness in your response, and I find best when you're trying to learn or understand somebody else's perspective, is to understand that everybody is working from their best frame of mind, their best state of consciousness, right? So it is extremely difficult to try to force my experience as a Black man in America on somebody else of a different history or different culture. It's extremely difficult because it's human nature to be concerned about the things that directly affect us. So
can you guys mute the audio if you're not talking, please?
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
So just staying in that mindset and understanding that your understanding has come from your experiences and the things that concern you. And when you're trying to, because I spend a lot of time speaking to individuals about trying to understand history and things of that nature. And it's oftentimes it feels like talking to a brick wall, or listening from a brick wall. It's like I imagine taking my headphones and plugging them into a wall. So it can be extremely frustrating. It can be extremely difficult. And it's just understanding that sometimes people aren't reachable immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit of digging. If the person that you're trying to understand or you're trying to communicate with is somebody that you care about, or value their opinion, or love them, then it may, if you would like to commit to it, then I would dig at it and just chip, and bring things up, and try to use the world around you as a tool of a reflection, a point of a talking point. And again, just staying within your frame of mind, understanding that, hey, I've had these learned experiences, and this is why I am the way I am. And that may not always be the case with other parties.
Thank you, Derek. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, Derek. I mean, when you were talking about that just brought me up one major thing in terms of changing someone's mind or perception. So in consulting, we have this framework called ADKAR, and that's a framework to really help people go through change. The first step in ADKAR, it's an acronym. ADKAR stands for awareness. So sometimes, to your point, Derek, people may not be aware of your perception or perspective just because that is their own bubble. They don't know. But that's the first step to change. The D in ADKAR is having the desire. So now, because they do know now, like what your perspective is, do they personally have the desire to change? The K stands for knowledge. So do you have the right knowledge that you can give that person to be armed to be ready for that change? There's a couple other acronyms, but those are the three most important ones. Without awareness, without having these conversations, and that's why conversations today are so important, because if you don't collaborate, if you don't work with other people and talk to them about how you're feeling, why things are maybe stacked up against you, they're not going to change, right? There's a book that I would highly recommend maybe reading. It's called The Seat of the Soul. It's by this guy named Gary Zukov. It's a very spiritualistic book, but the one main takeaway that I got from it was that it's all about intention, and it all starts with you personally. And with intention, you can either take it two ways. You can either take it in the realm of love or fear, and that there's a spectrum in between, right? So intention's not you're here or here. It's a spectrum that you'll move back and forth. But the intentions that you have will shape your reality, and that we always have, as humans, the choice to shape our reality. So in order to change someone else, you also have to change your intentions as well to help make that change. The perception of having no choice is an illusion. We always have a choice, right? But it all starts with you, and then working with others to help make that change. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you so much. And I love the thoughts both that you brought to bear. And if I were to kind of bring it home, integrating both Ben and Derek's thoughts here, first we need to make sure we seek to understand instead of being understood, right? Anytime we're entering a space of engaging with somebody, we must come authentically from a place of seeking to understand. Listening is not hearing. Hearing is me, putting my headphones on and going about things without processing it in my head. Listening is an active process. It is engaging with the intent to actually absorb it, synthesize it, and internalize it, right? So seeking to understand and listening with intent is step one. The most valuable lesson I was taught, and I will give the credit to my husband. At that time, he was my best friend. I was new in America. I come from an Asian world where the simple premise that we value people and we use things. And here I was in a Western society where we use people and value things, right? Complete opposite. And I could not wrap my head around that. How can you look at a person and somehow deny them the basic human dignity, and yet you value things? I'm at the grocery store where mothers don't have enough money to buy everything, but they have things they want and they have baby food and they leave the baby food behind. I'm like, oh my God. So I would tell Mike was my best friend those days, and I would tell him, oh my God, if I could change one thing, I would actually make it mandatory to have a license to have a child, not a license to get married, right? So these were my thought processes because I was shocked at what I was seeing. And Mike's advice to me to this day, it's like a record playing in the back of my head. Do not judge other people by your value standards. Do not judge other people by your values because you don't know them, right? Their life experiences are not yours. Just take a step back and observe and find out why they are the way they are. Because if you don't understand that, you're never going to influence them to even help them, right? So to me, that was an important lesson. Never judge anybody else by our own value systems. So if I can engage authentically and seek to understand and listen with intent, and I also don't judge them based on my value system, but I also don't want that value system to change me because then I've become part of the problem, right? And finding that right balance and then moving forward becomes key. Does that help you, Adriani? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. So that one was a slap in the face. You know
Sometimes
those
that's what you
things-
need.
Yeah, you know those things that you just don't realize, or like you know what it is, but you don't know how to put it into words, and then someone says it. Because when you were talking about persons getting stuff for them instead of the baby, I'm like, yes, and then you said the other thing, and I'm like, oh. I hide now, but yeah, that's pretty valuable information. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anybody
Thank you.
else? Any thoughts, any insights, any questions? We're here for you. Let's keep talking because this is how we change things. Yes,
Here I
Mark.
am. I finally came out of the cave. My hiding. I think this conversation is absolutely amazing. And it kind of seems to me the more we become educated and aware, we tend to judge, can we trust these things, people, the institutions, so on and so forth. So I guess my question would be, as we become a little bit more intentional with trying to do good, how can we garner trust into institutions or things that may have shown us harm in the past or not our best interests? Come on, man. I get on here to be deep.
Yeah.
Can I can take this first and feel free to jump in, Derek and Ben.
Okay.
I am going to draw from my own experience here. You already have heard me say that I'm originally from Sri Lanka. I grew up in the middle of a civil war that is racially charged. Sri Lanka used to be a 3-nation island before we became a colony. 2 of those 3 nations belong to the Tamil people. And the Tamil people are the natives of South Asia. We are Dravidians. The language of the Dravidians is Tamil. And then one of those 3 nations belonged to Sinhalese, who came through the Indo-European migratory pattern and settled in Sri Lanka. So their history is like, our history dates far back to 5th century BC and prior, and theirs was much later. And with them also came Buddhism. So here we are, a Hindu nation that got Buddhism and another language. And after the British left, we were a Portuguese, Dutch, and an English colony for 400 years. And when the English left us, they left it as a single nation. They took 3 nations and left it as 1 nation. And one of the things British did when they colonized us is they realized they couldn't enslave Sri Lankans. For some reason, the island people told them to go pound sand, right? That's an Irish terminology, by the way. I learned from my Irish business partners at Aon when I was there. And what they realized is, okay, so we can't make these folks do things for us. So they brought in Indians from this Indian subcontinent to work in our tea plantations. And then they handpicked the Sri Lankan Tamils to educate them in the UK and take us as their administrators to all the colonies. So if you truly look back, there are Sri Lankan Tamils who are administrators with that history in Africa, in the Caribbean. In Singapore, Tamil is an official language. In Malaysia, all over where the British colony was, they took Sri Lankan Tamils everywhere. Even in Belize, you have Sri Lankan food, you have the Sri Lankan Tamil culture, right, Adriani? So it is a good thing today when we sit back and see, but at that time it was not a good thing because we were going through so many different challenges, right? So what they did is they found a way to divide the locals, right? And when they left it as a single nation, here we had English educated, affluent population that didn't reproduce as much. Like any society, affluent populations don't reproduce. And then the Sinhalese majority had all of this population, right? At the same time, when we got our independence, we made a choice that, you know, we are going to abolish English as an education and only have native mother tongue education. That was the single largest mistake we made in a country where they took a 3-nation island and left it as a single nation and had already racially divided us based on our language. But one would think that we were Hindus and Buddhists. Buddhism is an offshoot of Hinduism. It's still rooted in peace and harmony and karma. There would be kind of, you know, some sort of understanding. No, conservatism in any religion and any religious institution can be easily corrupted, right? Because conservatism means they are not adaptable to change and they're stuck in their old ways and they are rooted in the old ways, do not want to modernize. That's the definition of conservatism. It's not a political term from the US context, right? So we had a situation where civilian to civilian, there was complete support and love and protection. But when it came to the government, government decided with the support of the conservative Buddhist clergy that Tamil people needs to be eliminated. And they didn't want us leaving, they just wanted us dead because if we left, we will come back, right? So there was this massive genocide. I was a refugee child in my own country by the time I was in my 8th grade. We had to dress up like Muslims. We had to, our friends had to dress up as Muslims and move us to the eastern part of the country because we couldn't even stay in the capital city of Colombo. Our lives were in danger. They'll stop our school buses, they'll check our IDs, they will shoot people and put us on a pile and put tire on top and burn. If it's a minority family, then they'll keep you in the car and burn the car, right? And so if you grew up like that, I grew up not wanting to trust adults. And then we're also angry with our parents because they didn't do anything. And here we are losing our childhood, right? So think about it. The institution of family is disrupted. The institution of school is disrupted. The institution of government, nobody can trust. But we were blessed. We had one thing. We had each other, and people refused to turn on each other. No matter what happened, the civilians refused to turn on each other. And so with that as a saving grace, over the years, we've built back. I left the island at 16. I went and pursued my high school and undergraduate degree in India. As a child, without parents, had my siblings with me. All of that was challenges, right? Part of me was angry, a part of me was sad, but I also had to come back to start my career because as a Sri Lankan, I could only start my career in Sri Lanka. That's the only place I could get a job. And when I started as a 21-year-old management trainee at the bank, Standard Chartered Bank, it was the first time they hired 5 women as management trainees. And I come from a country where women have an equal place. The first elected female head of state came out of Sri Lanka in the 60s. So we're a very female-dominated society. In the Hindu culture, we do not, in the Tamil culture, we do not take a father's name because no child is a father's property. Even when we get married, we have our name, right? So you're your own person. So there's such a dichotomy of things that are working and things that are totally like, you know, up the creek without a paddle. That's the nicest way for me to say something without using bad words, right? So in that situation, I actually learned to trust what I knew I could count on, human relationships. And here I was as a young banker with a group of young people. We were actually doing a bank startup as a branch in a Tamil community area with me as the Tamil person, and I had a Muslim gentleman, and the rest of them were all Sinhalese. But we were such a family. We helped each other. The 5 guys who worked for me walked me home every day to make sure I got home safe. When my brother saw them come, he'll run and go serve his dinner and hide it because he was afraid these guys are going to finish his food, right? So there was a whole different family dynamic there. But these guys came, I mean, we fed them. They were part of my family. Even after I came to America, these young men who are now grown fathers with children of their own, they always made sure they went home and made sure my parents were okay. If there was an attack on minority, these young men made sure my family was okay, right? So that kind of bonds force us to realize it's not all bad. What are the pieces that I can truly count on that is authentic, that is real, that I can put? When you trust somebody, to me, the image that comes to my mind is when somebody trusts me. Like Markel, you and I have this relationship where as a mentor-mentee, you've given me that trust. To me, that's sacred. You put everything in the palm of my hand, and I have the obligation to honor that trust and hold it with such respect and such gentleness that I don't crush you, right? If I don't, then I am going to come back as a rat and you're going to have, decon for me, right? That's the karma talking, right? But if we somehow can build a community where we truly can hold each other with that kind of authenticity and sacredness, from that we can build. But the key to me is knowing we can do that, A, and B, finding a way to build it. And I can say that I come from a society where relationships are valued more than things. Now, how do we take that lesson and lift and shift, but make it applicable in a society where we don't always respect relationships? I know from experience, I was a CFO for one of the Aeon companies. When I left that company, not everybody wanted to keep in touch with me. Why? Because I was no longer the CFO. They didn't have the use for me, right? Some people believe in authentic relationships. Some people, it is a season, right? And we can't hold that against people. That's how they're wired, right? But how do we take the realities of everything that's around us? And the short answer to your question, Markel, is it takes people to come together with the respect of dignity to life and dignity for each other's authenticity, and truly finding that middle ground, because whatever we build is not going to be exactly what you want. It's not going to be exactly what I want. Just like when 2 people get married. For marriage to last, both parties have to give and take for the rest of their lives. It is an investment and a relationship building effort from the time you take the vow to the time till one person goes into the grave, right? So how do we make that happen, to me, is the $1 million question. And what we are doing here is the start of the conversation. Because if we can respect one another and have this conversation and not judge each other and hold space, then we are creating the groundwork. It's almost like gardening to me. I till the land, I make it conducive to plant, and then I invite people to come and plant with me, and then we weed together. Am I going to get mangoes if I planted a mango tree? Probably not in my lifetime. And we need to be willing to say that the trees we plant today are not for us, but for the people who are going to get the shade behind us, right? So that is how I would approach it. There are a lot of different mindsets and human elements that needs to be brought in, but it can only be done with people, because ultimately institutions are just a building and an address and a zip code. Until Martians come here, it's we that we have each other. And if we can somehow influence each other and be mindful with each other, I don't need to believe everything you believe to respect you. And I ask you to honor that same in return. Right? When I'm tired, I don't speak English. So even if I greet you in my language like this, which is kind of very acceptable for the physical distancing world, It's the same as saying hi or shaking your hand, right? Can we accept that? Can we hold space for that? So Derek and Ben, jump in. That was my
Yeah, I'll go first, Derek, if you're okay with that. So Markel, awesome question. I think it's like also very relevant for today. So your question around trust, I deal with that on a daily basis. Everyone deals with that actually on a daily basis because at the end of the day, humans, we're meant to be social creatures. We're not going to live life on our own. So, and what trust is, it's essentially a social contract that foundationally it's built upon people, as Kaz was saying, who make an agreement to gain value outside of the individual itself. So, whether you're talking about business or even like personal relationship, trust is fundamental to make the world go round. I'll give like a business example. Let's say you're like a manufacturer of, let's say you're Nike, for example, right? Let's say Nike, you have a supplier that you trust, and you trust them to give you a consistent supply of cardboard boxes so you can actually ship out the shoes. If for some reason you have a shipment that's late or doesn't come through or it's the wrong spec, maybe the first time you'll let it go. But if it's a reoccurring thing, that's kind of there's something broken within the transaction that you have, and then trust is not there. Trust, at the end of the day, like any relationship, personal too, it's built upon consistency, through on commitments that you have, and then also built upon just a positive relationship. So, it doesn't matter what side you're on, communication is key, and having the channel or processes in place to like seek opinions will also be critical as well. And whether you're talking about like with a company or you're talking with your significant other or even your friends, if you don't have any of that communication or a feeling towards a positive relationship, that's not trust. Trust can either be transactional, like in the business sense, relationship, spiritual, as long as both parties, or if you are feeling that you're gaining something for it, that is trust. And trust can be more explicit. So in the terms of the business world, you can have certain terms and conditions that are out there, but most of the time they're unspoken, right? It's a silent, unspoken agreement that I got your back as long as you got mine. And I think this whole concept of trust is even more important today in the world as there's so many things going on, whether it's Black Lives Matter, the environment, or how like we perceive our current government today. There's that societal contract of trust that we have with the government. And there's things that, we might, things people may have to renegotiate on trust, on relationships. So I think your question is very, very fitting, whether that's referring to yourself personally in the business sense or even from a societal standpoint. Trust is really following through on commitments, to Kaz's point, and it's really what makes the world go round.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I would say to answer your question, especially coming from a community perspective, is we really got to put the unity back in the work community. It's hard to trust systems that the community is not involved with, right? It's hard to trust these things when people that look like you or come from your neighborhood or from your area, they're not involved with. So I mean, that's why we see issues with policing. We see people saying, how are police able to police this neighborhood and then go live in another neighborhood 20 miles or whatever, what have you, away. Those citizens are literally paying for those police to be in their neighborhood, but that money is literally leaving their neighborhood and going to this other neighborhood that the police live in. So it's hard to have trust in systems. It's hard to have trust in organizations that are not involved in the community and are not seen. They're not visible in the community. So you think of healthcare in the United States. It's hard for certain groups to trust the healthcare system, because historically it is used and abused people. It has put profits before people. So for organizations to come out with a feel good statement and not put any real accountable actions behind it, it's difficult for people to trust, to put trust in those systems. And it's an uphill battle, because once you've lost trust, whether it's from a personal romantic relationship or what have you, it's an uphill battle. There's always that feeling on you got those two people on your shoulder. You got somebody telling you one thing and somebody telling you another, and you're constantly butting heads, trying to kind of find that ground. So I think if systems are created with the community in mind, trust just kind of it's just born from that unity. So I think going forward, people just have to, like Dr. Kaz is saying, is we've got to get out of this individualistic mind frame. It's killing us. Literally, like Ben was saying, humans are social. We're social beings. We our lifespans increase when we have people around us that make us laugh and help us to live these kind of positive lives. So we need these things to survive. And I think you kind of look at humans and those needs, and then they should reflect the organizations that are created. So that really just give my short answer on your question there, Markel.
I love what Ben and Derek shared with you, Markel, and folks on the panel here. And let's keep in mind, we are not saying completely get rid of individuality, right? Think about what Goldilocks is about. It's about the balance. So if you look at a spectrum, individuality is in one end of the spectrum, and then collectivism, or our social contract and our obligation towards each other, is at the other end of the spectrum, right? If you're a Christian, it's the thought of do unto others what you would do unto me, right? If you're a Hindu, it's like duty to man is duty to God. You take any philosophy, any faith, any culture, it's telling you to meet everybody somewhere in the middle, right? We want you to be able to, and we each need to have the drive, the innovation, the motivation to improve, the motivation to succeed. So we need to have that. But that is not coming at the expense of everybody else be damned, right? So how do we find that centeredness? I always say I need to be a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll so that I can jive to whichever music is playing, right? So the journey of life is to get at the center of all of these spectrums. So I would go one step further and say, we live in a society today where it's been bombarded to us that you're either a capitalist or you're a socialist. There is no country at the capitalist end of the spectrum, and it's an economic model, by the way, it's not a political model. The economic spectrum is capitalism or socialism, and prior to that, there was bartering and all kinds of colonialism and all kinds of other things. So it's a journey we have taken, and today we went from colonialism to capitalism. What capitalism was supposed to do. So my doctoral dissertation is in the sweet spot of ethics and profits and how they need to come together in order to build viable societies and viable businesses. So when Adam Smith gave us the prescription for capitalism, he wanted us to have a way to overcome colonialism, because the colonial masters were taking us resources and leaving each of our countries bankrupt, right? So Columbus didn't come and discover anything. He just came into somebody's house and helped other people take us stuff, right? Literally from our countries, right? So it was already discovered. You can't discover something that already existed, right? So let's get that history lesson out of the way. And so if capitalism was about an antidote to colonialism, his prescription had three parts. You have labor, you have capital. Labor is the process by which you take raw material and convert it to finished goods, and in that process, we add value. So you take land and you grow and you take your crops to the market to sell. That conversion process, the value of that economy is in the agricultural labor. But in order to provide that and bring that value, you needed capital to buy land and buy equipment and do the cultivation. So labor is the true value creator. And in order for labor to create value, you needed to have capital as the seed money. And he felt that at some point in time, labor might actually overshadow capital because they were value creators. He felt that there needed to be a balance, so he put regulation in the middle. So think of regulation as the pivot on which a seesaw functions, right? You have to have, if you're going to play, both parties need to be able to go up and down a little, right? Otherwise, nobody's having a seesaw, right? And the intent was to have labor and capital work together and regulation act as a pivoting referee. Most of us are here in Chicago. What happens if Cubs and Sox played a baseball game without any referees? With the referees, there it's a blood feud, right? We can't have a game without referees. So how can we have a society that believes that regulation is bad, A, right? And then it is either, you're either for labor or you're for capital. It's not either or. All the money in the world. We were taught my dad's story. If everything I touch turns gold, I'm going to die of hunger. I'm going to die naked. And my plumbing and everything in my house is not going to work because all I have is money and I don't have skills, right? So how do we look at capitalism and socialism? America is not 100% capitalist society, and there is no 100% socialist society. We're all somewhere right and left of center. So let's stop the BS and start looking at the world the way it really is. We have a government-sponsored, taxpayer-paid military. We have public education. We have Social Security. We have Medicare, right? All of that means we are partly a socialist society. We're also a capitalist society. And to say that if we're socialist, capitalism will not work, I call BS on that, right? It is not that black and white. So how do we find ourselves in that right sweet spot that is going to work for us? How do we get past all these lies that are being told to us? And if you're a socialist, you're not a communist, because communism is a form of political system and socialism is a form of economy. And look at these three lines from a spectrum. This is something I do when I teach in the classroom for my graduate students. Individualism and collectivism. Individualism is about a person, one person, right? So let me do this. And then collectivism is about all of us, all five of us, let's say, okay? Now, capitalism is about me being rich. Socialism is about sharing things with everybody as much as possible, right? And what about democracy and dictatorship? Dictatorship is about one person, democracy is about all of us. So we can't say we're a democracy, but we hate socialism and we hate collectivism because somehow we've messed ourselves up and we don't know how to bring this together. Because in every aspect of our life, we can't be just about me. And then when it suits me and I want something, I want everybody to come and show up for me. It's like, no, you just already killed everybody else. There's nobody to show up, right? So how do we get past this head faking or these false dichotomies that we are continuously bombarded? And here's another reason why we should ask why. Why is that so? And why isn't it this way? So by asking questions, we are peeling away at the falsehoods people are feeding us so that we can truly make true judgment in collaboration with other people in our interest. And I cannot function if everybody else around me didn't make my life possible. And we need to somehow get an understanding of that, because wearing a mask for COVID is not about me, it's about everybody else.
As well put. I mean, talking about the spectrum, and when you were talking, it made me think of a book that I recently read that I think everyone should get. It's a book called Factfulness. It's by a professor called, his name is Hans Rosling, Rosling. He just talks about that currently everyone has these preconceived perceptions of how the world is that actually distort how the world really operates. So, I mean, we consume the news. News is, some would say a little bit biased based off of what you look at. There's social media. We're all in these bubbles. There's all these studies show that, even in the 2016 election, 25% of Americans that were polled in the 6-week period, I think Dartmouth did this survey, they visit a fake news website, right? So, there's a lot of information out there that makes you think either you're either left or you're right, you're either white or you're black. But in the reality, everything's in the middle. Like the majority of everyone is in the middle, but the way that you consume information, you have these preconceived notions. You're either left or you're right. You're blue or you're red. So having this podcast, this conversation around there's actually a spectrum where you can be, and having that awareness, that will make you better as an individual. But having people understand this concept more will help society and groups in general just know how to actually make progress. The one thing about media in the book that the book Factfulness talks about is that we think that the world is just going down the pooper, right? Like there's all these wars, there's coronavirus, there's poverty everywhere. But if you really look at the hard numbers, the world actually has exponentially gotten way better since the early 20th century. But we think and perceive that it's actually a lot worse. So my main takeaway is that things can look worse, things can be bad, but at the same time be getting better. And it's all part of that spectrum that life is, where you're not going to be here, you're not going to be here, but most of us will be here. So how do we move? How do we influence the people? The 3 up, 3 down. I love that analogy, Kaz. Like, how can we influence those people to move towards the right direction that our society needs to go in?
Does that help you, Markel? Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you, Derek.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for asking that question, because it's very timely. We're all caught in the middle of this, right? We're all living in a time, regardless of where in the world we are, questioning, can we trust our institutions? Can we trust what somebody has built for us? And one of the most important things for us to remember is whoever who built it, right, wrong, or indifferent, they did the best they knew how, and they came from their place of self-interest. So that's a statement of fact, right? Their truth, my truth, Ben, your truth, Markel, your truth, Derek, your truth. Our truth may be different, but the fact is still the fact, right? So if we understand that as factual and the world has moved forward, now with everything that we are aware of and we have access to more information and we have the ability to discern better, how can we all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? No matter how crippled that the process was. How do we go from where we are to the next, and how do we leave this place better than we found it? That is our charge, right? What are the trees we need to plant, and how do we leave this better for those who come behind us? And so, what better place to start than here? We have an international audience here, right? This is not just the United States here on this live webinar here, live conversation. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's reach out. Let's give each other a hand, and let's build as many bridges as possible, because we're going to need those bridges to walk across. Any questions, any thoughts, any insights?
Okay, I have no idea if I'm going to be redundant with the question, but when you guys were talking about
no redundancy, go ahead and ask whatever you want.
Okay, so since you guys, I know, have been, have the experience with networking with people and all of that, I wanted to know, how do you know you're trusting the right people, and how do you know you're not being used solely for your potential? Like, do you go based on your intuition? Do you go based on factual knowledge? How do you go about not running into, or how to put it, or not allowing your own belief system to tamper with the people that you do need to be surrounded by? Because I have this thing where I'm cutting off everybody in my life at the moment, because I don't think that they are bringing value to me, and I feel like a lot of them are using me. So this is a personal question. Mm-hmm. I feel like because I'm a good person and because they see a lot of potential in me, there's always this thing where they reach out to me whenever they need something from me, but I don't ask for much. And When I do want someone to be there, there's rarely anyone that's going to actually be there. But when they need something from me, they expect me to drop everything that I'm doing and just be there. And when I'm not there, like they get upset.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. And you're not alone in that. We've all experienced this. Ben, I hear you nodding. I see you nodding. So do you want to jump in? Or
Yeah, I think we've all had an experience with that with friends or even family, right? And again, trust is really built on positive relationships and consistency and following through on commitments. So if you do feel like that is not being done, like that's trust is again like a social contract. And if you don't think that's not happening, I mean, it's fine to renegotiate, right? Like at the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself and find people that you can grow into yourself as an individual and person, but also like as part of the broader society and world. So yeah, I mean, really just be honest. Just tell them like, hey, like this is what my view of friendship or personal relationships is. I don't think you're pulling your weight. Same thing that you would do in the business world. You would call companies out on their BS, right? So at the end of the day, look out for yourself, communicate. If you don't think you're being reciprocated, there's nothing wrong in renegotiating your existing relationships or like seeking other ones that you actually will grow in. So, um, I mean, that's all I can say. But yeah, really, it's just talking and communicating and making sure that they're aware as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with Ben there. I make it a point of action to trust my gut, especially when it comes to meeting people. I think human beings were blessed with an innate sense of this intuition, and a lot of times life and kind of the people around us can try to water down that gut feeling, that innate knowing, and kind of chalk it up as, oh, you're being crazy or something like that. But a lot of the times you're right. So I would say trust your gut. You're talking about friends or family, things get really sticky. I mean, I've been in a situation. I've got a twin brother. We used to be really tight, and we're not now, just because of the same thing. I only get phone calls and things of that nature when they need me. But when vice versa, when the shoe is on the other foot, I'm left hung to dry. So, you still, especially with family, you don't get to choose who your family is, and it's up to you. But my kind of like way that I handle things like that is, you can love people from a distance. You still care about them, but just kind of remove them from your circle, because I have things that I need to do, goals that I want to achieve, and right now you're not currently in a position to facilitate that or help that. So it is perfectly fine to put yourself first. Talking again about what Dr. Cass said, we don't want to be entirely collectivistic. We have to take care of ourselves, our own mental health, our own physical well-being. Like those things have to come first, because when you go to bed and when you wake up, you're the person that has to deal with your peace of mind or lack of peace of mind. So you need to be able to feel good about yourself. That is the most important thing, because ultimately it's really you that you're having to live with. So put yourself first, especially you seem young, definitely the time to do so, because later on in life, you may have to sacrifice a lot of things, sacrifice a bit of yourself to take care of your friends, family, children, what have you. So right now is definitely the time to put yourself first, especially if you have things that you want to do, so that you can create a world that you seem that you be happy with, that you can go to sleep with a smile on your face every night.
Beautifully said. There is no relationship in this life that is more important than two relationships that have to come first. Number one is your relationship with yourself. You need to know you, you need to love you, you need to embrace you, right? That is for everybody. The second relationship is whoever you call your creator to be. So your relationship with yourself and your relationship with your God are two things that are going to be there for you no matter what. And nobody else can take that away from you till even when your body and your soul separate at the point of death. As a Hindu, we believe that those two relationships go with the soul. They are of the soul. They are not of the body, right? So those are relationships that are going to last no matter what. And when you anchor your life on those two relationships, all the others fall into place and you can shed light on the others. So my life has taught me to embrace those two relationships first. And I also ask two questions. Who am I being? And how the person I'm being is helping me do the things I do. And then I look at other people the same way. Who are they as a being? And then what are they doing? So I build relationships with the being. And those relationships with the beings also are a relationship of the soul. Then there are very few times questions come up as to, are they using me? Because at the core, if you're pure and you're genuine and you care, then at some point, even if they were blind to something, you can sit down and have a conversation. And most of us don't tend to look at people that way, right? Because in the Western society, each of us introduce ourselves as based on what we do. If you look at the way I had the two guests on the show introduced, and the way their introduction was written on the flyer, I put who they are and what their passions are first. What they do came second, right? But we live in a society where it's flipped. I don't care about who you are. I just want to know what you can do for me and what you have done for me lately, right? That's fine if that's how the work world approaches you, but don't make that the way you approach relationships, right? So when you approach relationships that way, you're truly building authenticity in the way our being connects with another being, right? In the age of social media, what's the point in having 1 million likes and 1,000 friends if none of them are going to bring me soup if I had COVID? Who's going to bring soup and ring my doorbell and leave soup on my front porch and walk away without even waiting for a thank you? If I had one of those people in my life, I am damn rich, right? I will never forget when we had first come to Belize, my husband and we loved the environment. We loved the people. Everybody was so embracing and open. It's a developing country. And my husband made a comment that everything is so beautiful, but it breaks his heart that people are poor. And the folks around there immediately jumped on him and said, we are not poor. You may think we are poor because we don't have the things that you have in America, but you are coming here to spend life. And now we actually have our retirement home there. That's where we're going to retire. And they said, you are coming here because you find the richness of our culture. You find the richness of our society. We are rich, right? Think about that. Think about that for a moment. And how do we build the kind of society where, regardless of the stuff we have, are we going to show up for each other, right? And so if we truly come from that place of consciousness, then we will be a little more mindful of using people, right? And we will also be comfortable reminding people, you know, I know your heart is in the right place. You don't intend to do it this way, but do you realize this is how it's coming across, right? And we should be comfortable enough to have that question with anybody, including our parents, right? And if we can't have that conversation, then there is something to be done in building up the beings on all sides. And sometimes we have to learn to cut our losses and say, you know what, this is not meant to be. And that's okay too, because not every shoe is going to fit every foot. And that's okay. Right? Great question, Adriani. Thank you. We have time for one more question, one more conversation.
You right over there, Dr. Cass?
Yes, I think the sunlight is in my eye.
Okay.
Just one eye. It's only affecting this eye here.
A quick question. So, in my journey in fighting for change, maybe some of you guys can resonate, but I can only speak for myself. I come to always hit this blockade of power. So, I guess my question is, what are some ways and how can me and my organizations chip down at those walls of power that people hold to stay in power, essentially, in order for us to show them why we are fighting, what we are fighting for, and why and what is important?
Can I ask you a couple of clarifying questions for context, Gabriella?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so when you say power, is it power of money? Is it power of influence? Is it structural power? What are you talking about?
It's a good mix of all of those. So what I'm referring to, I have a few situations in mind. So, or as like council boards, political power. So yes, structural and financial power would probably be the main two.
Okay. Okay. It's hard to have people who have power give up that power, right?
Yes.
Because it is true, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and nobody wants to give that position of power. So the only way to deal with that is somehow show them that they don't have the opportunity to hold all the cards. Because there's the reason I asked you to clarify is more than any other power, the most valuable thing is the power of influence. That's why every power goes out to destroy the one person who has influence, right? Because the power of influence is truly leadership. Because what is it about being a leader? I don't get to wake up and say, I'm a leader, everybody follow me. No. Being a leader is a privilege. That means other people are choosing to follow me consciously every day. I give this card to all my students every time I'm done teaching a leadership class, okay? It's a leader card. On the back it says, I hereby grant you the rights and responsibilities of being my leader. This privilege may be revoked at any time. I give this to every one of my students. When they go out there and try to bring about the change they want to bring about, they need to remember any given moment that it is a privilege given to them by somebody else. And it can be taken at any time. There, I'm going to put it here so that it shows up on the video, right? And remembering that is important and knowing that there is the power of influence. How can we use the power of influence to actually shake up the grip that people in power have over us? And we can render them powerless, but for that, we need everybody else alongside for the journey, right? The best example I can give is think about India and how India helped the entire Asian subcontinent, South Asian subcontinent get independence from the British. They never fired a single bullet. They never got into war. It was Mahatma Gandhi's blueprint of nonviolence, peace movement, and satyagraha. Satyagraha means hunger strike, okay? We are going to self-sacrifice and we're not going to move from here, and we are going to have peaceful protests, and we are going to economically boycott you. The one place you have power is because of money, and we are not going to let you. So they took the cotton from our part of the world, went and made fabric and brought it back as clothes to sell. And we said, we're not buying your stuff. So I'm wearing a shawl here. We wear sari, we wear sarongs, we wear shawls. It's nothing but 2 yards to 6 yards of fabric. To this day, that's what we wear. We wrap it around ourselves in different fashions. And when we're tired of wearing it as a sari, we make curtains, we make pillowcases, we make place settings for the dining table, right? It's still fabric. But what we said is we're going to weave our own fabric and we are going to live our lives on our terms. You can take our cotton, but you can't make us buy your fabric, fabric made clothes, right? So what is that one place we can take away? It's like Pennsylvania is the keystone, right? Which is that one Jenga block you can take to start dismantling their grip on power, while we are holding our influence and our community together. That is the way I have seen it work. And you cannot go there if you do not have an army that has your back. And so in order to do that, each of us have to show up in our authentic self as a being to build the kind of relationships people are willing to, put it in the palm of our hands and know that we have their best interests, and they will go to war and back with us because they know we will not crush them.
Yeah.
So that is my take. Derek, Ben, jump in.
Yeah, I love what Dr. Cass is saying. One thing that the powerful do really well is they kind of put this I want to say, I don't want to call it an illusion, but this idea that they have the power, but the power is always in the hands of the people. It's always the hands of the people. The people workers don't need per se don't need the boss. The boss needs the workers, right? So it's just a matter of bringing people together, and you don't have to agree on everything. One thing that Fred Hampton, who's from Chicago, that he did exceptionally well is he was able to bring different people from different groups together under the premise that we are fighting for one root cause, right? One root cause. We don't have to agree on everything else. We just need to agree on this one cause and fight for that. The second thing is you have to be prepared. You can't be prepared to dismantle or take away power from the powerful if you do not have your own system to replace that power set in place, right? Otherwise, you end up like a lot of countries, Haiti, for example, with Papa Doc, who took over after they were able to successfully revolt. They didn't have things set in place, so the oppressor just changed colors. It went from the French to a Black Haitian. So having those systems ready to go, those are the things that bring a lot of people on board. Otherwise, you hear a lot of people say, well, if we're going to take this down, what do we do with this system now? How do we fill this hole? So you can kind of unify people by having these things set in place. So I would say biggest thing is really letting the people know that the power is in their hands, because a lot of people look at these situations and think it's impossible. There's no way we can combat this. We don't have the resources. We don't have the money. But I can think of an example personal to my life. I help a homeless group over in Aurora, Illinois. They have a tent city, and it's on private owned land by the railroad. The railroad came in and they tried to remove the homeless folks. They have nowhere else to go. The railroad's not using the land at all, and they just wanted to remove the people from there. They have a whole civilized society back there. They've got a hierarchy. They have a governor. It's a very interesting thing. And when the railroad came in and tried to physically remove these people, how did we combat that? We organized the people. We brought attention to it for the community, to the point where the people said no. It was literally that simple. No, they're not going anywhere. And now they're still there. And obviously the end goal isn't for them to stay there. We're working on getting them employment and housing, things that they need, and empowering them. But it's always that unity. And the most difficult part is bringing the people together. But with social media and things of that nature, it's a little bit, the tactics are a little bit different now. I mean, if people in the 70s during the civil rights movement and past revolutions and rebellions were successful at doing these things, I think we have the power in our hands to do the same thing. So I know it's a lot easier said than done. Most things are. But my biggest piece of advice to you would be to kind of bring more attention and organize the people to like Dr. Kat is saying, have some type of economic or some type of accountable action, some type of way to take the power out of the hands of the powerful. Because it's really, like I said, it's really never in their hands. It's just this kind of idea that we accept, but it's always the people. It's always the people. So power to the people.
Thank you, Derek.
Power to the
Do you
people.
want to quickly add something?
Yeah, so I agree with Kaz and Derek what you were saying. Like with any movement to dismantle the power, right? It's to Derek's point, it all starts with the coalitions and the people that you bring in, and change isn't going to happen gradually. I mean, you can go to the extreme where, you know, like countries have gone to war just to dismantle and overthrow governments, but really change, again, it's more gradual. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of effort. And the thing about also people in power, you know, they have a tendency just to forget about the past, right? Like what's happened in the past is not relevant to what is happening today, but that's exactly the reason why. So just, you know, bringing up like, hey, this is a pattern of things that we're seeing, you know, like why are they happening like that? Like, let's have a conversation about that. And then if you are going to be negotiating or talking with those people in power, you know that they have power for a reason, and that you have to create or suggest a scenario where both sides would win, right? I mean, ideally, they're going to want to take all, but really it's not a zero-sum game where there's a winner and a loser. It's let's create a scenario where there's a win-win scenario, and you get this and we get this, but we as a collective whole get better as a result. So laying out what those terms and conditions are, understanding what that win-win statement would be, and then really just, again, trying to build that trust, that positive relationships that we had just talked about a couple of minutes ago. Like focusing on that will help you move and make people in a position of power aware that, you know, maybe the playing field isn't level. Maybe there's a way that we can create a solution where everyone benefits for the greater whole. So those would be my quick takeaways.
Beautifully said. And I love the notion of win-win partnerships, right? If it's a win-lose situation, nobody's going to be at the table to negotiate. And anytime somebody tells you it's in the past, think about the movie Lion King. Remember the monkey mentor takes a bat or a stick and whacks the lion? And then the lion says, hey, why did you do that? And he says, why do you care? It's a thing in the past. So I actually have my students watch the movie Lion King, that section, and we talk about it. And when people say that to me, I say, you know, I can go get a bat and give you a whack, and can we agree that it happened in the past, right? We can interject some humor and have this conversation. So don't think that every serious situation, we need to approach it seriously. I always interject humor, and I always get things said in a way that you cannot say without humor, right? So find your own way to say it. And I just want to share a book that I use a lot when I do things for my world, Switch. It's How to Make Change When Change is Hard. And this book talks about how change is like riding an elephant. Coming from Sri Lanka, I grew up around elephants, right? It's not like riding a horse. You can jump on a horse and tell the horse where to go, and the horse is obediently going to go. That's how we gave up power. Other people don't take control of power. We gave up control. At some point along our social life, either us or people or before us gave it up, and we've continued the status quo. So in order to take back power, there has to be change. And that change is not going to happen like you switch horses. It's like riding an elephant. Have you ever tried climbing an elephant? You can't climb on it unless it allows you to. And B, if you upset it, it's got a trunk, it's going to take you down and smash you. And I have this mental image of me laying on the floor like a tortilla chip smashed into smithereens, right? Because one elephant foot would, oh my God, maybe that should be part of my diet plan, except it needs to stamp me in one specific direction, right? But riding an elephant is about influencing the elephant and building the trust with the elephant so that the elephant would want to play with me and engage with me. And then it's going to go where it wants to go because it realizes we're going to have fun doing it and it is going to be meaningful to our relationship. Okay? So bringing about change is just like that. The community around us, the people, that's the elephant. The inertia of society is the elephant. If we go too fast, if we go too hard, if we go too slow, if we are not balanced and we are not actually deliberate about it and authentic and gentle at the same time, we are not going to survive the process of change. So that is the thought I want us to leave with today. Life is like riding an elephant, and each of us have the ability to be the rider, but it starts from us in being authentic, being an authentic being by itself, and then allow all our doing to be influenced by the being that we are, and then build trusting collaborative partnerships, meeting everybody where they are without wanting to change them, but knowing that we can all meet somewhere in the middle for our collective good. Because I don't have to change Ben to be able to be a continuing business partner with Ben. I do not have to change Derek to be friends with him or, do business with him, right? We can be authentic to who we are and still come together in a meaningful way to become better than we each individually are. That is where we need to go if we want to problem solve. That is where we need to go if we want to bring about change. And so we bring this episode of Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right, to close. And remember, the whole show is about how to get it just right, right? You don't need to have Goldilocks. I don't have them, but we can embrace our inner Goldilocks, and we're going to bring about the change. And remember, every human interaction we have is our opportunity to transform. And in this transformation, after this session today, you're all going to go out there and do your thing and embrace your Saturday. Go out there and change lives and transform lives. But don't forget to start with your own, and come back to join us next week, where we're going to talk about how to selflessly and selfishly build relationships so that you can self-promote and build networks with a purpose.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Gigi here.
Yes, go ahead, Gigi.
I just want to thank you for your time this Saturday. I learned a lot, and it really changed my mind more into how to go about my everyday business life and my everyday personal life. I always welcome more growth, and just listening to you, like I could just sit and listen to you like every day. And I appreciate you. So I just want to say thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Gigi. It warms my heart that you say that. And Gigi is my Belizean connection. And Adriani is here from Belize. So we have a group from Belize attending with us today. And thank you so much.
We also have another RFNG agent as well on here. He's from San Pedro. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much, Belize. We wish we were all there in the Caribbean, right?
Yes.
But hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much to my friends and network here in Chicago and the US. And I know we have people joining us from Pakistan as well. So thank you so much to everybody. Go out there and change lives and start with your own. Thank you so much.